Good afternoon. My name is Thatcher Mendiola. I'm the director of the Center for Mexican American Studies here on campus. I want to welcome you here and indeed appreciate that you would show up late on a Friday afternoon to hear about the Chicano mural. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me begin by saying that beginning in the fall, technically, it will be the 40th anniversary of the founding of the Center for Mexican American Studies. We're going to have a whole series of speakers that we're now planning, in the planning stage, to come in and make presentations. The tentative theme that we're talking about for the conference, or our speaker series, is the Chicana generation, with a comparison of how it was then and how it is now, in a variety of academic areas, history, culture, so forth and so on. But as that evolves, we'll keep you informed. I raise that not only as a point of information, but included in our plans was a discussion of the mural. But events brought this event much sooner than we anticipated. We were going to invite the original people who established the Mexican American Youth Organization here on campus, and the role that they played in establishing the Center for Mexican American Studies, and in conjunction with that, the mural. But what has transpired, which is forcing us to do this earlier than we anticipated, was the expansion of the bookstore. The bookstore leases space from the University of Houston, and they want to expand the bookstore down here. And initially wanted to destroy the mural. They had been warned, I think, that this would probably not fly. We were never consulted about that idea. And so we began to, ourselves and students began to question the decision and so forth and so on. Where it stands now is that the university, the folks that are involved in this, have brought experts out to see if the mural could be moved. Our option, and they're telling us their option, is to include the mural in the expansion of the bookstore. That wasn't initially what they wanted to do. That's our option. In fact, that's what we're going to argue for. In fact, we're going to argue that they put a plaque here explaining, giving a brief history of the mural, and identify the characters and so forth and so on. So that's where we are at this point. If the mural can be moved, they said they would do that. That's their second option. They don't know, though, where they would move it. So we don't know where they would move it. So things are very much, at least from our opinion, very much in flux. What is particularly galling about this is the lack of consultation. It's occurring on the 40th anniversary of the founding of the center by the same organization that painted the mural, and the disrespect of our history that those actions imply, infer. I can't imagine if the mural had a depiction of the savagery of the Civil War, or perhaps even the history of the first sorority on campus, that it would have been taken, that we would be having this discussion. We understand, we appreciate that the mural is controversial, but let's be frank. Being a Mexican in the United States is controversial. So controversy sort of goes along with the territory. The other thing that we found disrespectful was the lack of consultation. No curiosity of the origins of the mural and what it meant to our community. There used to be a row of tables here, and this wall used to extend out over here. And this is the area almost 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago, were the first significant group of Mexican Americans, of Chicanos on campus, used to gather. This is where the planning from Mayo and the other organizations that came to pass, Mujeres Unidas, were all discussed right here. We were very small in number, probably less than 400 students. We are now pushing 9,000. We're on the verge of being declared, the University of Houston is on the verge of being declared a Hispanic serving institution, meaning that its full-time undergraduate population is more than 25%. And it opens up certain benefits. So at the same time that and if you look at our trend line of enrollment, it's at a very steep angle. So all of these things are occurring at the same time that the university is on the verge and is submitting its application to be a Hispanic serving institution, the same time as the 40th anniversary of our establishment on this campus, and within the midst of their battle cry of diversity. How many times have we heard the University of Houston is the most diverse campus in the nation? See, but there's a difference between words and deeds. So this disrespect, and it really is galling to me to have to continuously deal with these issues. But deal with it we will. We have setbacks, but I think we will prevail. So that's sort of a brief history of where we stand now. The history of the mural now will be talked about by the two artists who painted the mural. They'll give you the controversy surrounding the mural. They'll explain who the characters are. And then hopefully we'll have time for your questions and answers. Again, thank you very much for showing up this afternoon. I would like now to introduce our speakers. I'll introduce them both. Where's Mario? No, there's Mario. Our times as students overlapped here for a while. I've known these gentlemen most of my adult life. It's good to see them, even though I haven't seen them in a while. To my immediate left is Ruben Reina. He's working in San Antonio. I'll let him give his own background biography. Sitting next to him is Mario Gonzalez. Their names are on the mural as the artist. Sitting to my right is Rinaldo Eskimo Rodriguez, one of the leaders back on the campus in those days, who played a major role in securing the wall and the funds and was involved in all of the history surrounding the mural. So let's welcome them to campus. Who wants to go first? We'd have it, okay, Ruben, you want to go first? So let's welcome them.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. I'm very impressed by the attention that this mural has brought to the community, and that students here are still very much concerned and involved in wanting to preserve this mural. I know that it's a mural that has been here for 39 years this year. It's kind of hard to believe that I was here 39 years ago. I was a young student like all of you were back then. Back in those days, it was a day of era of a lot of excitement. It was the Chicano movement. I had just gotten back from the military. I'm a Vietnam veteran, combat veteran. So when I started college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. But first, let me start about myself. My name is Ruben Reina. I'm a product of migrant workers. My parents were from the Rio Grande border. My mother is from Mexico. So I'm a product of migrant workers. We migrated to Houston back in the early 1950s to seek a better life. Like many immigrants that come to this country, they're looking for opportunity, for growth. I was born in the state of Washington, almost close to Canada. Why? Because my parents were out there working in the fields, and that's where I was born. And we initially came back to Texas and in Houston, and that's where I grew up. I grew up in the barrios of Houston. If the Clayton home's still around? Yeah. My beginnings were in the Clayton homes, and I grew up in the north side. Mario and I go back many years. We met in high school when we were 16 years old, so we have a long history together. And we met again after our tour in Vietnam, here at the University of Houston, where this creation began here, this work of art began. I'm sure many of you would like to know what this mural means, and I'm going to give my perspective view of what the mural means to me, and Mario will be saying his definition of what the mural means to him. I begin from the section that I painted. I painted the left section of the mural, and Mario began from this side, and we met in the middle, and together we created the centerpiece, which is the future of the Chicano. And Mario will be talking tonight more about that. I want to begin with the beginning, the origin of our history. The Spaniards, when they came to this country, they met with the Aztecas, and they came here for a reason, to conquer. And in their conquer, they caused a lot of hurt to the Aztecas. They came for gold, for knowledge, and basically what is depicted here is the Aztecas being tortured at the fire for their knowledge, for their wealth, for their gold, and this is what they're depicting, the struggle, that the Indians had from the beginning. This is our beginning. The lands back there is Mexico. Mario will talk a little bit more about that. But we begin with the Indian, the mestizo, and then we start with Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. She was a nun, a poet, a writer. She lived back in from 1650s to 1695. She was a very brilliant woman, very brilliant woman. Back in those days, women did not have the right to an education. The only way that a woman could get an education was to become a nun. So she became a nun. Back around 1664, she joined the convent so she could get an education. But she was very, very bright, intelligent woman. And what got her in trouble was she was very vocal. She stood up for the rights of the woman, the rights for a woman to have an education. She wrote various articles, various poems, and you could not keep her quiet. Eventually, the Catholic Church made efforts to quiet her. They could not keep her quiet, and eventually, about 5 years before her death, she ceased her writing. And within 2 years of that, she passed away. I don't know if she died from a broken heart, but what I'm trying to say is she was a woman ahead of her time. She was one of the first Latin activists that spoke up for the rights of women. And one of the reasons this woman is up here is because we had some Chicana activists back in those days. Miss Maria Jimenez, I remember I was up here painting, and I didn't mean to intentionally exclude women. I just didn't know much about my own history. I was just now at that time learning about my history. And the Chicana activists we had back in those days with Mayo would come up and tell us, what about Sor Juana de la Cruz? And that's how she came about. When she told me about that, I went to the library and I researched her. What did she look like? It was paintings of her. And from the various paintings that I saw is how I ended up painting Sor Juana de la Cruz. And other women that are up there were because of the contribution the women with Mayo had on us in depicting the role that women had in the revolution. The next person we have here is Father Miguel Hidalgo, who led a revolution back in 1810 against Spain. He started in 1810, led thousands of peasants, Indians, in a revolution. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. A year later, he was captured and executed in 1811. But the movement he started led the path for others to pick up. Eventually, won independence from Spain. And then we have Benito Juarez. I think all of us have heard of Benito Juarez. He was a president of Mexico back around the 1860s. He was president, I think, 5 times during that time. he began a movement to remove the power of the church controlling the government. Also, he began efforts to try to land reform to give the Indians some land. But he was very effective in removing the control that the church had over the government. He is often known as the father of the nation of Mexico. He defeated Maximilian back in, I think it was 1865, and that's when they got the independence from France, which we celebrate the Cinco de Mayo. Then we have Madero, President Madero. Madero was president of Mexico back around 1910. He was very much involved in bringing down Porfirio Diaz, who had ruled Mexico for 30 years. Very unjust government at the time, very controlling and denied people of their rights. He got involved in a movement to try to defeat Porfirio Diaz, and eventually won and became president of Mexico. But he was a leader that was not a very strong leader. He was very controlled by strong people in the government, and eventually he was executed in 1913. And that's what began the movement of the Mexican Revolution. When Madero was executed, Pancho Villa and Emiliano Zapata, the first one in front of him is Emiliano Zapata. He was the general of the South, armies of the South. So, and Pancho Villa was the general of the North. A lot of you know about Pancho Villa. He was a big army. They eventually met up in Mexico, and for a short period, Pancho Villa was president. They entered to Mexico City and took over the government. But to make a long story short, the war came to an end about the 1920s. Zapata was, I think he was tricked into a hacienda. I think President Calles at that time was trying to eliminate all the leaders in the revolution, to bring the revolution to an end. And Zapata was executed. He was tricked into a hacienda thinking that some forces were going to join him, and he was executed. In 1923, Pancho Villa followed. He basically was given a hacienda toward the end of the war. He fought against the people that had the large haciendas. In the very end, he himself was a hacienda owner. He got large land in 1920, and then about 1923, he was thinking about going back into politics, and the president at that time had him assassinated. He was killed in 1923. And then we go into Lázaro Cárdenas, the president of Mexico from 1934 to 1940. This man here was very much involved in removing the control of foreign control over the Mexican petroleum industry. At that time, Mexico was one of the second largest oil producers of the world, and it was dominated by foreign countries, United States, England, and other countries. And basically, they were robbing Mexico of their wealth. And when he became president, he removed that control from foreign countries and brought it back to Mexico, forming Pemex. He also began to initiate programs for land reform, giving land to the peasants for what they had fought for during the revolution was never really given to them. So he began to initiate the programs that were fought in the revolution and giving land reform, and again, getting control back of the economy to Mexico. And right here, this person right here, La Delita, that represents la mujer, the woman. Woman has been so much understated in history. She had a vital role in the movement, in the revolution. La Delita is a soldadera, a woman who went to war. Many times she had no choice. Her man went to war, she went with him. She took her family with her. She fought beside him. They were a vital force to the revolution. Without them, the man could not have succeeded what he did on the battlefront. Not only was she involved in the battlefront, but she was also involved in the political arena. When the revolution started, it opened a lot of doors for women. Women got involved in politics. The political leaders would listen to them. So they had an impact politically and on the battlefront. And during this time that I was painting this mural, we had Adelitas among Mayo. I see some Adelitas right here in front of me. That you yourself can create change in making this a better place to live. Las Adelitas that were present here back in Mayo is why we have women here on this mural. And it was very well received, and I want to thank them for the impact they had in representing women on this mural. The men you see here are los campesinos, the peasants, the Indians that fought the wars, being led by Adelita. In the center here, I showed the Catholic Church. Catholic Church back in those days was a very powerful machine. They were the government of Mexico. What I'm showing here is Cardenas pushing the church aside. In the meantime, the church is asking for money, but yet not giving enough to the people. I show here poverty, a woman with a child in her hands, asking for help. Help me. In the meantime, the church is taking, but not giving back to the people. So she is looking to the center for help. Help us make this a better world for us and our families. And with that, I will hand it over to Mario, and he will talk about this side of the mural.
Thank you, Ruben. I'm gonna place these over here because I need a little bit more real estate up here. Yeah, my name is Mario Gonzalez, and hi girls, my granddaughters. I'm gonna talk about, to start off with, the inception of the mural, and we'll expand into the development of it. But first of all, let me just back up a little bit so I can tell you a little bit about where I come from. And I was born here in Houston, Texas. I was born December 31st, 1947, and at Herman Hospital. My parents lived on Canal Street, 2518 and 2520. My grandparents lived on there also. I grew up in the barrio of Second Ward. I went to high school in San Jacinto, where I came in contact with Ruben. We knew of each other, but I don't think that we really hit it off that well. I don't know what happened after the Vietnam War. As Ruben stated, we both went there. I came back and started college to further my education. Didn't know what I wanted to do. There's a dear friend of mine that I hadn't seen in a long time that gave me the motivation and the inspiration to go into the art department here at the University of Houston. And he's here tonight, or today. His name's Benito Reina, and I'd like to acknowledge him for his support. I started the art department like after my first year at the university, and I was fascinated by the art world. I was fascinated by every form of art that was happening on campus. And I was taking classes from 7 in the morning till 10 at night. They were all art. That, you know, I just couldn't have enough of it. But I realized somewhere after about the first year that some of the student artists that were on campus were doing what was called a graduation theme or graduating thesis, and they would get extra credit for that. So after the first year, I thought, well, you know, what could I do for my graduating thesis? And I came to my organization. I didn't even know it existed, but like I said, Benito was a good friend of mine at the time, still is, and we hadn't seen each other for ages, but I'm glad to see you. He said, come on down to the Cougar Den, that's where we all hang out. And I said, well, all right, you know, so here I came, you know, and the entrance was over here before they built this wall. All the Hispanic, Mexican American students were all in this section right here. And some of them overflowed over here into these other tables. For the most part, we were all here. And that's where I began to meet fellow students of similar backgrounds. And I met Eskimo there, and I met many other people, and I began to think about that thesis and trying to incorporate everything into a form of art that I could present to the art department. At the time, Dr. Gunther was our director of the art department, and I went up to him one day and I said, Dr. Gunther, I'd like to do my art thesis on Mexican American history. And he acknowledged and he said, good. And then he walked away, you know, and I'm going, wow, you know, I'm excited about it. Why isn't he excited about it? Well, that's fine. That didn't deter me, but I continued to do more research. I went to the library, found books, and started reading those on Mexican American history. I kept finding stuff on the Mexican Revolution, and started learning about some of the people. In fact, a lot of the people that Ruben just spoke about that are on the left side of the mural. And we picked these personalities because they represented to us a portrait of those individuals who contributed through their bravery and their determination to find a better way of living and a better way of existing. So as the years went by and it got closer to, I think I was already a junior then, and I started putting some stuff together and on drawings and things like that. And I came to Mayo and I wanted to present the idea of a mural. I was looking at this wall because it's an attractive wall. When you see it, when I saw it and it was white, I couldn't stand it because it had that panoramic view. It had the curves and I mean, it was a unique wall, and it still is. So I knew I had to do something on that wall, but I didn't know how to go about it. And Dr. Gunther wasn't, I didn't think I was going to get, much further than what I had already gotten with him. So I came to Mayo in 1973, or actually it was 1972, the fall of '72, and I presented an idea. At the time, there was another artist that presented a mural idea as well. And we both presented it. The Mayo organization looked at it. I don't know how many people were in Mayo at the time, but I think, I'm gonna guess maybe a couple of hundred members at the time. I'm not sure, but maybe Maria can verify that.
Well, active were about 50, but when we called mobilizations, we could get about 100.
Yeah,
But I think active were about 50.
active, yeah. That sounds about right, because that's, those are the people that were at the meeting, and both of us artists presented these ideas, and Mayo took a look at them, and Maria said, you know, we like the idea, we'd like to support it, but I think you guys need to go and see if you can work together and bring back a drawing that we can present to the Ethnic Affairs and to the Student Senate and try to raise some funds for it. And we did that. I remember going to Ethnic Affairs. I remember going to the Student Senate, and at the Student Senate, there was this girl that went with me to ask for the funds, which I think her name, I'm trying to remember her name, Mariana. I can't remember her last name. Molina. Thank you, Eskimo. Molina. She and I went there, and thank God for memory. And she and I went and presented it to the Student Senate, and the Student Senate was a much larger body than the Mayo organization, and of course they had a lot more money than we did. So after a big discussion over the pros and cons of the mural, they decided they go ahead. They took a vote, but they asked us to step outside while they voted, and then they asked us back in, and then they told us, that they were going to award us $800, I believe it was. And I think Ethnic Affairs awarded us $300, and Mayo had probably another $300 or $400. And so I think the whole total was about $1,400. 16? Thank you. My memory card.
Let me kind of take over here a little bit, just
Yeah.
to kind of fill in and then have Mario finish up.
Go ahead.
Do I have to tell who I am? Anyway, my name is Ray Rodriguez, and I'm known as Eskimo. Anyway, it's a long story if I tell you why my name is Eskimo. Every idea, every project needs to have money. At the time, if I remember correctly, there were like, out of our student activity fund, it was like $30 here. Tuition was, what, $100 a semester, or something like that? Some of you guys suffer. Anyway, when the idea was presented to me, we had several bills, and one of them was cheerleaders wanted to buy new uniforms for a big game. So Joe Udell, which was the head of the finance, said, we need for you to help us in this. I said, well, I got a bill pending before the money for the Ethnic Affairs. So can we trade here? The guy went back and forth, we went back and forth, and at that meeting, it's kind of like, okay, fellas, let's do something here. We need the money, we need this mural, is there a difference? Finally, it came to a vote, and yes, we got the money, and the money actually was for the mural, and also another bill pending for Ethnic Affairs. And I've always pride in being a Houston Cougar, class of '77, that the University of Houston, other than UT, provided for the ethnic students. And what a great way to show, to say, hey, we'll fund the mural through SA money. I played a very small part, and really, I mean, this is the artist, not me. I just got the money. I was in a position to say, hey, Senate Contingency Fund has this much money. And you'd be amazed, which some of you guys, if you haven't taken interest in the Senate, do so. There's a lot of money out there, your money, student money. So we were able to get this money to buy the supplies, buy all the stuff that we needed. And of course, yeah, we got the money, and I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Eskimo. Yeah, we got the money, and part of that money was awarded to me in a, I guess, an educational tour of. I was to do a 10-day tour of Mexican American history in Mexico, at museums and whatever I could find as a result of those findings. This mural became a reality. I went to the Museo de Antropología in Mexico. I went to Frida Kahlo's museum. I went to Teotihuacan. I went to the university there, and I looked at the murals that were painted on the walls in the university. I took pictures of all of these murals, and I mean, I was energized. I was inspired. I was ready to paint a mural. And then I ran into a person who happened to be a nephew of Siqueiros. That's David Alfaro Siqueiros, a master muralist. He was one of the 3 Mexican muralists who painted murals throughout Mexico and the United States. Unfortunately, some of the ones that were painted in the United States were removed or whitewashed. We're fortunate to have this one still standing. I know there's a lot of controversy over it today. There was a lot of controversy over it the minute it went up on the wall. There was controversy before we even began it. And there's still controversy. But I'd like to say that we all have feelings. No one really cares about our feelings or what you feel. Thoughts and ideas are more important than what we feel. It is our thoughts and ideas that become words, and our words lead us into our actions. It is our actions that define our character, and it is our character that reveals our destiny. It is our destiny that defines change, a change for a better way of life. After all, this is the dream of all immigrants who came to America. This is the predicament that the young graduate is facing in the center of the mural. Knowing about his past, knowing about what's going on in his life, and he's at the stepping stones of a higher institution of learning. He's getting ready to graduate, and he's faced with this predicament of what to do with the rest of his life, or what to do with what he's learned. A young person, or this young person who is standing there could be any one of us. He represents all of us. He's about to forge his or her life into this land of opportunity. Quetzalcoatl was a god of the Toltecs and the Aztecs. On the far right of the mural, he's depicted as a plumed serpent, directly acknowledging our ancestry. We are all the descendants of these people who lived on this American continent during pre-Columbian times. This graduate of Hispanic descent did not come here on any ship that set sail from Europe, the Orient, the Middle East, or Africa. He's depicted as representing one of us. He is embraced by the jade mask Jefe. The Jefe is the antepasado, and the jade mask conscience is the reminder that our ancestors had a way of life that was destroyed, radically destroyed, by the Spanish conquest. Next on the mural, you'll see the depiction of indigenous people who were burned for their lands in reference to the conquest of Tenochtitlan by the Spaniards. Tenochtitlan was the largest city and capital of the Aztec culture. Tenochtitlan was the home of the immigrant Mexica, one of the names of the Aztec cultural people who founded the city in 13 AD. On a swampy marsh on the lake of Texcoco, which is the basin of what is now known as Mexico City. The Mexica were one of 7 Chichimeca tribes who came to Tenochtitlan from the land of Aztlan. And by the way, the land of Aztlan, as we refer to, the land of Aztlan is from Florida to California. Those are the states that encompassed the land of Aztlan, the southwest part of the United States. Next, the history of the Mexican Revolution is just part of the struggle depicted in striking color. We decided to portray those individuals, or those individual personalities that had some contribution through their bravery and their determination to find a better way of life and a better way of existing. The history of the Mexican Revolution is also the history of Texas. And it tells us who we are today. It tells us who our neighbors are, and it tells us how we got to be the place we are today. It has always been treated as a separate history. a history that happened on the other side of the border. But it is not. The Mexican Revolution took place here. Texas was also part of the cause of the revolution. Investments from Texas bankers and Texas businessmen supported Porfirio Diaz, and they Mexicans turned against Texas and the American businessmen. And this all happened here. On the opposite side, we're depicting figures of the Hispanic, the Mexican-American movement at the time was referred to as the Chicano movement. The Chicano movement began, I guess, you could classify the Mexican Revolution as the Chicano movement as well. But there's Tijerina, who was fighting in the courts for the Texas land grants. There was territories that were taken from people who had legal rights to those countries or those lands. And Corky Gonzalez in California, Florida, Colorado. He was also in the movement of the Chicanos for their advancement. And Gutierrez was pretty heavy into the equal rights, equal pay, better working conditions for the migrant farm workers. He did a lot for raising wages for them and finding them better facilities to work in and to live in. Because if you were a farm worker at the time, your wages were kind of the lowest. If not, you may not even get paid. All you would get was the room and board. And the room and board may have been a little 8x10 box of plywood where you had to house your whole family because your whole family had to go work so you could make enough money to buy food. The migrant workers had a hard time. Thanks to Gutierrez, there's a little bit more humane treatment and humane pay, not much more. Then we have Cesar Chavez. Oh, I'm sorry, I got Gutierrez mixed up with Cesar Chavez. I just spoke of Cesar Chavez. I'm sorry, but Cesar Chavez was the person who helped the farm workers. The Gutierrez was the founder of the Raza Unida party. He was more of a political icon. Then, Alicia Escalante.
Alicia Escalante was involved in poverty programs in California. She addressed the need for more services for the poor. She, again, was brought to my attention by Rey Jimenez, and she's still very actively involved in California in addressing the needs of the poor, for more better programs, welfare programs.
Thank you, Ruben. That's exactly right. A lot of these people, we did the research as we were painting the mural. A lot of attention was brought to us from the student body. And I might add that while we were painting, there were students that came in between classes and would help to paint the mural. We would mix the colors in a little styrofoam cup and give them a brush and tell them paint this area, and they paint till they had to go back to class. And once Ruben and I got most of the wall covered that way, then we kind of told everybody we had it, you know, we don't need any more help, and we started just refining and depicting the things that were of importance, and we got the mural to where it's at now. But we did have, I have to say, lots of help from the Maya organization. And when we signed the mural, we signed the Maya organization in the center because we were part of the Maya organization and all the students took part in it. You want to add anything to?
I do want to add that the spirit of David Sequeiros was very much with us in this mural. Mario had the good fortune of meeting David Sequeiros in Mexico and spent a few days with him, but brought back tons of recordings of David Sequeiros. So Mario and I would sit here painting. We used to paint 12 hours, 14 hours a day. And this mural was done in 30 days with $300 we had left in the budget. And we did that to save face with the university because Mayo had the answer for that. And through my involvement with Mayo back then, I brought Mario back into the mural. And I told Mario, I'll help you. You know, I could paint, but my plan was not to paint. I was just involved with Mayo, and I ended up painting half of it with Mario. But Mario went to Mexico and did the research and brought David Sequeiros with him on tape. And we would put the tape here and listen to him as we painted. So he influenced us. And this mural is dedicated to David Sequeiros. La Marcha por la Unidad. The march continues to making this a better world to live in.
And that is the title of the mural. La Marcha por la Humanidad was one of Sequeiros' last pieces of work before he passed away in 1973. I was there with him in like the late, I don't remember the exact dates, but I think it was late May, because we begun the mural like in the 1st of January, of June. And while I was there with Sequeiros, I did record him, I did interview him, and he did give me an opportunity to work on his last piece of work. I don't think it was finished because he passed away, but that was the title. And when I told him that I was there to, that I was in Mexico to do some studies and research on Mexican murals, because I was going to start to paint one as soon as I got back, he just embraced me, and his hospitality was extraordinary. He put me to work on his mural. He talked to me. He gave me advice. He was, I can't say enough about the inspiration the man gave me. It left me with a big legacy. And the murals that he painted when I did research on his work were incredible. I can't understand why some of them were whitewashed or removed. The history of our people is very much important to us all. In any way that we can get that across or out to the public, that was Siqueiro's advice to me, is to do it in the form of a mural, because the mural is public art. More than one person will be able to see it. It's not like you go buy it and you take it and you put it in your house and you're the only one that can see it. It becomes public. However, the fact is that we are all victims of the Mexican Revolution. We are a vivid example of having many people whose ancestors fought in the Mexican Revolution. Many of our parents were children of the revolution. Some of us are grandchildren of the Mexican Revolution. We need to understand we are complicated in our presence in these lands. We are descendants from people who were here long before the United States. So our question of immigration is a very different one. Our story stands alongside all the best immigration stories of all other Americans. The mural is a kind of testimonial of our presence in this country. This nation, it's its history. This nation and its history is rooted in and among the founders of Northern European culture that has always been our destiny as a nation to become a nation of all nations. In my closing thoughts, I'd like to say, God is the Word. You cannot have a thought without His Word. You cannot share who you are without His Word. You cannot remember your past or dream about your future without His Word. To find who you are in this mural is just one of thousands of stories you can experience as a child of the Revolution. There are many stories that have been told, that have not been told rather, that have not been documented and that must never die. We must continue to tell the story of the struggle, the sacrifice, the impairment, the reinvention, the success, and the tragedy faced by the descendants of the brave immigrants who fled the Mexican Revolution in hopes of beginning a new chapter in the lives of the family. And I say, may God bless La Familia.
We have time for a few questions.
Yes.
I have a question. My name's Delilah Montoya, and you know, I've done some Chicano art myself, and I have to say this mural that I'm looking at is an excellent example of that early Chicano mural that was being done throughout the country, really. And I have to say this is probably the best example I've seen here in Houston, well preserved. And to see it removed would be tragic, because it's part of this history that is, we're losing it. And this mural is in excellent condition. So it would just be devastating to have this mural even removed, because I don't think it could be removed that well. But I do have a particular question concerning the mural in terms of the laca that you have there, the skeleton figure. Could you tell us a little bit more why you decided to depict Uncle Sam as a laca?
I'll say my definition of it. We depicted the centerpiece here as a student, male or female, going up the steps of success, making to the top. My depiction is, what are you going to do as a student when you graduate, when you make it to the top, and you have an opportunity to make a change for society, to make this a better world? Are you going to do that if you happen to be there where you can make a change in the world? Or are you going to sell yourself to the devil, the evil of money? La calavera basically is just the negative influence that you may encounter through life. And it's going to be challenging for you. What are you going to do? Are you going to do what's best for society? Or are you going to do what's just best for you for the moment and not have an impact in the world? So in life, you're going to be tempted. You heard that saying about if you sell your soul to the devil, but there's strings attached to that. This is where we have the strings here, the puppeteer. You sell your soul, you'll be controlled. So in other words, be in control of your own destiny. Do something that's going to be better for the world. In La Marcha por la Humanidad, that's what we're talking about. The struggle for humanity, to make this a better world for all. Back in that time, we're talking about Latinos, with Chicanos. But in reality, it's a better world for all. What can we do to make an impact in making this a more humane world to live in? And that's what that signifies. The temptation, fight the temptation, and stick to your morals and your values.
So then that's the temptation of power?
Let me go with this. It's not to minimize anyone or anything. The only depiction of the skeleton that you see, and let me just back up a little bit, because in the research that I did in Mexico of all the murals and all the artwork that I saw in the museums, there was not one that I recall that did not have a skull in the picture. Some of them had, numerous skulls. Now, the Aztecs used to take skulls after they did their sacrifices and put them right in front of the pyramids to ward off evil spirits. Now, to get back to the depiction as you see, this is the way that myself and Ruben, the artist, came to an understanding that the depiction of the skull is a skeletal, structural figure of the government. The government, on one hand, gives us the land of opportunity, and on the other hand, they discriminate against us. This is my way of saying I have faced discrimination in this country, and that is represented by the skeletal figure of the government stepping on the U.S. Constitution. We don't have equal rights. And this is my depiction of how to explain that. The young man who's in the center with the skeletal figure of the government is embraced by his conscience. He's embraced by the antepasados. The jefes at the time of the Aztecs, they used to bury their jefes in tombs kind of similar like the Egyptians would bury their pharaohs. And in this burial ceremony, they would put a jade mask on the jefe, and that was an indication of how he was to be protected from the bad things that he did on earth. So that way when he got to the afterlife, he wouldn't be judged. And that is the conscience that is embracing the young man who is about to graduate from college. At that time, like I said, it could be any one of us, and he represents all of us.
Question.
Yes,
My question was answered through your explanation. Thank you.
thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I want to say that it's an honor to meet the artists. I remember coming here for the Student Government Association. We would have certain meetings here at some times. And I always wondered, what does this mural mean? What does it show? Why is there a skeleton? Why is it, I am Mexican American, but I always say that I'm Hispanic because I feel discriminated against lesser if I say that I'm Hispanic. So I do feel that from the government, how we're told not to embrace our culture. I mean, I see people that probably mimic the Mexican culture and make it, try to make it their own. And it's like, you are your race. I don't try to imitate you. I am my race. And, coming here, I always wondered, who are these artists? And it's such an honor to meet you because esto es arte. It's history, it's art. And it's an admiration because I really cannot remember the last time that I felt this proud to stand here among Mexican Americans or anybody of any culture and embrace this, because it would be a sadness to lose this. And I can't imagine your loss for people that you lost your art, and how your tutor or mentor lost his art as well.
We haven't lost this wall yet.
I'm not from Houston. I'm originally from Corpus Christi. I came up here to finish up my education. I just stayed on. Stayed on and stayed on and stayed on. One of the reasons, if not the reason, for the Chicano Studies program was to give Chicanos an opportunity to know who they are, where they come from, where they're going to. Chicano Studies program started as a recruitment. There were like 4 or 5 people that went to the different high schools. They went to Jeff Davis, they went to Austin, they went to Milby, where a large population of Chicanos were attending. When I came here in '72, there was only like 200 identifiable Chicanos. A lot of times we were asked, why do you want to call yourself a Chicano? Well, we've been called taco vendors, pepper guts, wetbacks, alambristas, you name it. This is what I choose to call myself, Chicano. The vehicle to bring more students into the University of Houston was the Chicano Studies program. Victor, myself, Maria, Lorenzo, we went to lobby. We went to Austin to lobby for the monies. What can we give the incoming students? What can we give them? What can we give them? Chicano Studies program was the first vehicle. It is a shame, it is embarrassing that from the very beginning, we were only given this wall. Take it or leave it. We were given 3 months. And I remember the last 3 weeks, we're here till 10 o'clock at night when we were told you need to get out. It was a long, hard fight that we had, but this is how we got a lot of things started. A lot of times, there were only 5 or 6 of us. I can sit here and say, or stand here and say, I spent a lot of time. A lot of times I didn't go to class because, hey, I was playing crazy eights. Playing crazy eights or playing spades. I would have, if they gave the, or they put you on the dean's list for spending time at the UC, I'd have made the dean's list every semester. I'd have been on that list, hey, number one. Sometimes when you go to class, I didn't feel like going to class. But the Chicano Studies program was one of the vehicles. At the time, there were 2 Mayos, a Barrio Mayo and a U of H Mayo. Sometimes we have a conflict. That's where some of the problems came in really finishing this mural. So we have the Barrio Mayo and the U of H Mayo. So, answer your question, look, when we started Chicano Studies program, it was to have Chicanos go to those classes and find out who they are. That's basically what it was. It was nothing else. Fighting the administration every day. Every day. I remember, and this fight didn't really start here. It really started at Del Mar College, Lorenzo and myself. There was a jukebox here in the center of this place. This was the center of activity. Attorney people sat over there, blacks sat over here, Chicanos sat over here, and then that student sat over there. This was the center of activity. That's what it was called, the University Center. Once they started putting walls, started with a curtain, a real nice curtain. And then they started building walls. People came here to eat. There was a cafeteria back there.